Our first topic of the evening has to do with the wonderful folks over at the Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project got into a little bit of trouble this week when they sent to a Glenn Youngkin rally. For those who don't know the name Glenn Youngkin, he is the Republican nominee for governor in Virginia. That is one of the races we're going to be keeping an eye on Tuesday night. So once again, tune in for that watch party on Tuesday night. That should be a fun time. He is running against Terry McAuliffe. Of course, Virginia's home of Charlottesville, home of the big race riot, the Unite the Right rally, which turned deadly in 2017, when very famously you had these white nationalists wielding tiki torches through the streets chanting blood and soil, you will not replace us, all this horrible shit. And so there were these guys.
I understand some of them were just waiters from a Benihana's.
Yeah, maybe they wandered into the wrong scene.
Yes, exactly.
But these guys in tiki torches and white shirts and the whole getup showed up at a Glenn Youngkin campaign event, and they stood in front of Glenn Youngkin's bus, and they seemed to be chanting something like, "We're all in for Youngkin. We're all in for Youngkin." And then it later came out, and the Lincoln Project admitted that they were behind this stunt / hoax. This is the thing about this that's kind of sleazy, is that it would be one thing for them to stage a protest where it was transparently obvious that, yeah, we are dressing up as white nationalists in order to call attention to the fact that white nationalists, descended on Charlottesville a few years ago, and they're trying to tie Glenn Youngkin to the white nationalist base of the GOP now, or whatever, and you want to do that as a statement. It doesn't sound like that's exactly what the Lincoln Project did. It sounded like they were a little dirtier than that, which is they actually had these guys show up to pose as actual Youngkin supporters, as somewhat of a false flag type situation where they infiltrate the other candidates' campaign crowd in order to create the actual impression that there were these tiki torch wielding white nationalists there. And Terry McAuliffe himself actually called them out for this. He said, there's no place for this kind of thing, because it's a sleazy move to not be clear about whether this is a hoax where you're actually playing really dirty and trying to make it look like there are white nationalists in Glenn Youngkin's audience, or if you're just making a statement trying to tie the GOP to this white nationalist movement, which even though, that's a hardball tactic, I guess, but that's a legitimate form of protest, right? But they were not very clear about which they were actually doing. And I think that is where they found themselves in some trouble. And so we are going to play a little bit of sound here. We have some sound on the Chris Cuomo CNN show where James Carville, who is not part of the Lincoln Project, and Stuart Stevens, who is, both appeared on the show. So let's watch a little bit of this sound right here.
Is Virginia the first measure of the midterms to come? Let's take that question to the better minds. Republican and Democratic strategists Stuart Stevens and James Carville. Good to have you both.
Okay, so just so everybody knows, Stuart Stevens is on the left. James Carville looks like the sort of anorexic praying mantis there on the right.
Yeah, actually, he kind of looks like the Grinch, doesn't he?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense that this guy is from the New Orleans area. He looks like a literal swamp creature.
He kind of looks like Swamp Thing too, now that you mention it.
He's a swamp creature. He is.
Yeah, he looks literally like Swamp
literally Thing. and metaphorically, of course, he's been one for quite some time. So Stevens is the guy in the blazer and Carville is the guy in the purple, just so everybody is clear on that.
Jimmy, let me start with you. What do you think of Virginia? Do I have it right that what's happening with McAuliffe is the first look at the measure of Democrat power?
Well, this is one Irishman that has had a drink, Chris. But yes, it's an important election.
I know you have.
And it's a very important election.
He sounds a little drunk, slurring a little bit.
It would be bad. It's bad to lose any election. I wish they would have had to been able to consummate this deal prior to Tuesday, but that looks like it's unlikely to happen. But I am very worried. I'm very concerned. Every Democrat should be making calls to people in Virginia and get as many people out as we can to vote. It's going to be a very tight election.
Now, let's talk tactics for 1 second, Stuart.
All right. Before we talk tactics, let's just do a little bit of election pre-gaming since we are going to be talking about this. Carville does not sound confident there that McAuliffe is going to carry the state.
All right. Well, listen, man. I think I called it in a patrons only thing. So I called it for Youngkin about a week and a half ago.
Yeah. By the way, we did a very thorough 2021 election preview for our patrons that was exclusive for the patrons. Once again, patreon.com/do-dissidents. You got 4 videos per month, 1 full-length podcast episode per month, as well as call-in access to this wonderful live stream operation we have going here. But Russell, yeah, so you said you called it. Go ahead.
I called it for Youngkin a week and a half ago, and actually something that reaffirmed this for me. I'm one of those people who kind of senses where the wind is blowing from talking to actual fucking humans. I had people from Virginia today on my tour. And they were like, and they weren't right wingers. They were like, yeah, Youngkin. They felt Youngkin was going to win, and basically on the grounds that Bill Maher was arguing that the school thing is deadly. That basically McAuliffe, which this amazes me. McAuliffe comes out of the third way Democrats whose basic whole mission in life is to suck the assholes of suburban white people and get their fucking votes. How could a man coming out of that Clintonian tradition of appealing to the white flight voter, how in the hell did he get up on a stage and say, I don't think parents should be deciding what their kids learn in schools?
Yeah,
I don't get how that guy made that mistake.
It is weird.
I don't understand.
A third-way Democrat like him would die on the hill of, we are teaching your child Toni Morrison, whether you fucking like it or not. So shut up and stay out of our business. All right, we'll talk about that more in a minute. Let's just get through this clip, though.
Before I get your macro on it, some people showed up at a Youngkin event posing as Charlottesville protesters. A group you're with, the Lincoln Project, owned that it was them, that they posed this way because they wanted people to remember. You're getting crushed by people on the right.
Okay, so they owned that it was them. So this was obviously not like a protest. This was a weird thing where they had these guys show up in order to make it look like there were white nationalists there to support Young.
But they have a black dude. There's a black dude on the left. Yeah, on the left. Isn't that a black dude? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good
or is he just in deep shadow?
That's an astute observation. I don't know. Maybe they'll get to that.
Stand behind what was done, and is that being what you guys say you oppose?
No. Listen, every day I hear people pleading with the Lincoln Project to help show Democrats how to win, how to play hardball. This is an example. The question here is it's not about some guys who showed up at a rally. It's why hasn't Glenn Youngkin denounced Donald Trump for saying that there were good people on both sides? I mean, that is absolutely outrageous. And it's because Glenn Youngkin wants it both ways. And I think that's the message.
Where'd you learn that debate team?
Here. The Lincoln Project was the first in this race to put Charlottesville in an ad. And some people thought maybe it went too far, but we did it. And it worked, and then the McAuliffe campaign followed us and put Charlottesville in a very good ad they did. So I think the question here is we can't ignore what happened in Charlottesville. The question is, why hasn't Glenn Youngkin denounced Donald Trump?
No, that's not the question. The question is, why did you make it look like these guys were there?
I mean, they're professional liars. They're professional liars, and it's so obvious. Like, how much of your brain do you have to be missing to be able to stomach this kind of news coverage? Like, how the fuck do you watch this shit?
These people spent over a decade of their lives.
Like, being exposed to this much of it drives me up a fucking wall.
All right, well, we got one more minute.
This is how I react to bad theater. This is why I almost never go to theater. Drives me up. It drives me
look,
fucking
I hear the
crazy.
question. It's a legitimate one. But, James, the Democrat Party in Virginia has said, look, we weren't part of this. It shouldn't have happened. What about the Democrat disposition in terms of how to win these upcoming battles?
Well, I mean, first of all, the Lincoln Project is independent of the Democratic Party of Virginia. I happen to know the chairwoman very, very well. And, and I kind of agree with what Stuart said. It was to illustrate a point that Youngkin has not denounced Trump saying there were fine people on both sides in Charlottesville. I think this is a kind of a 10% of Tea Party like that. But, Terry's campaigned hard. he's raised a lot of money, and it's just a tight election. And it traditionally only one time since 1965 where we follow a presidential election has the party that won the presidency won the Virginia governorship, and that was in 2013. So that it's a race. Virginia is a state that Democrats have done considerably better in, but this is a tough cycle that we're in right now, and hopefully we can win this. But some people think we're a slight favorite. I'm too nervous to think right now.
Well,
yeah. I mean, the thing that's nauseating about the Lincoln Project, I mean, there's a lot that's nauseating about the Lincoln Project, but
just
especially
everyone in that clip should be put on trial for their crimes.
Well, yeah, I mean,
everyone in that clip.
Yeah, those were three pretty low quality people there for sure. Look, one of the things about the Lincoln Project
struggle session for all of them, man.
That is just so nauseating, especially as it pertains to like this whole thing where now and look, there were a lot of Republicans who all of a sudden, when Donald Trump ran for president, became these sort of anti-racist activists and stuff like that. But like these guys were Republicans through WMD. They were Republicans through the Patriot Act. They were Republicans through Guantanamo Bay. They were Republicans through Hurricane Katrina, the drowning of a black section of a largely black city. And now, once like Trump was this moment where they had this, oh my God, look what we've done type of moment, and tried to sort of cover up the record. And that's really what the Lincoln Project is. I mean, we got into this a little bit, I forget when, but Steve Schmidt, who's one of the main Lincoln Project guys, he was John McCain's campaign manager in the 2008 cycle, and he was trying to convince John McCain to go after Obama for the stuff that Reverend Wright said, Obama's black pastor. And so, I mean, look, I mean, so these guys are just the slimiest actors out there.
I think the Lincoln Project people were always dumb as dog shit, but you didn't have to be fucking smart in the Trump years to appeal to fucking liberals. All you had to do was cut an ad. And they Trump and they go, the Lincoln Project, where do I sign a check? Ooh. And now, like, it's a more complicated environment, and this is what happens when you're fundamentally stupid and you have to try to figure out how to deal with a more complex situation. You do shit like this. They were never the sharpest knives in the drawer, and now they're just, they're not smart enough to handle this race. They weren't smart enough to figure out how to inject themselves into this race. And in the you can almost hear the thought process. They just didn't have the subtlety of mind to distinguish between what would really make liberals go gaga and what would make them like, oh, but hang on, what?
Because
what are you doing? Like,
the whole thing is
you can see this is what they thought. Like, oh, the liberals will love it. No, we'll go down there dressed as white supremacists, and yeah, it'll be like a sick burn on Youngkin, and they'll all write us checks. I mean, this is all about fundraising for them. So it's just a grift. It's just a grift.
It's a grift in that way. It's also a grift in the sense that, like, a lot of these guys probably are more aligned with Youngkin politically than they are with McAuliffe. I mean, these are Republicans.
Yeah,
that's
not where the bread is
premise
buttered.
of the Lincoln Project was that we are Republicans. Make their money off the libs now. The whole premise of the Lincoln Project was that we are Republicans who are making an exception this time because Donald Trump is especially bad, right? But they built their brand as that. Now they have all these like libtard followers that I guess they kind of keep writing the checks.
That's so where their bread is.
Now
buttered.
they have
That's
to support Democrats, and they don't really, like you said, they don't really know how to because they're not Democrats.
Right.
I mean, if Trump were never president, they'd probably be supporting Youngkin in this race.
But now they can't go back to the Republicans because they're apostates.
Right, exactly.
So now they made their bed. Now they gotta figure out how to get the libs to keep writing them checks to keep their grift going. That's what this was. That's all it was.
Right.
And and as you say, like, they don't really understand liberals, but in the Trump years, like that, what did you need to understand?
You didn't have to. Right.
say mean stuff about Trump. Now they don't understand how to talk to those people well enough to realize that this was not the approach to take. Like I can see how, like, if you really were not in that world, like you only had a kind of caricaturish understanding of it, this would seem like a good idea to you. You would think this will go viral and bring in the big bucks. That's what I'm saying. It was just stupid. It's just raw stupidity.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I didn't make a prediction in that Virginia race, but it certainly, I mean, between Carville's just general, like, disposition in that interview and now this breaking against them, I mean, it's starting to look like it may be breaking Youngkin's way.
Okay, you know what my theory is, basically. This race, if I'm right about it, it's going to be... I actually had a friend ask me the other day, about, like, wokeness and cancel culture and critical race theory and all that. I had a friend ask me, like, and very sincerely, so do you think this is going to be like bell bottoms? Like, is this going to go away? He asked very nervously. And I said, yeah, because they're going to lose elections. In the end, it's a variation on money talks, bullshit walks, right? Like, anyone who is perceived this way is going to lose. And
well, this might be,
the end, that's going to discredit this movement.
You may be right. And in that sense, that they may be lucky that this Virginia race is happening when it is, because maybe they will learn that lesson 1 year before the midterms rather than have the midterms be that lesson.
Oh, no, they're going to have to get wiped out in the midterms, too.
I mean, I think they'll get wiped out in the midterms anyway. By the time you get into 2024,
anybody who wants to go, we need to fill these spaces with equity, they're going to go, shut the fuck up. Shut up.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe wherever you saw it, on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Facebook. We have channels on all 3 of those platforms. Also, consider helping us create more content by becoming a member at patreon.com/do-dissidents or on Facebook, where you can become a supporter right through our Facebook page and get bonus content every week, as well as call-in access to our live stream shows. Thank you very much for your continued support.